You sit down at a restaurant in Mexico or maybe the local Mexican restaurant down the street. You are so excited to practice your Spanish, but before you finish your sentence, the waiter responds to you in English. If this has ever happened to you, well, stick around because I'm going to share 2 magical phrases that will not only get the waiter to speak to you in Spanish from the very beginning, but keep the conversation with him or her in Spanish the entire meal. And if you stick around to the end, I'll be sharing a bonus expression that will knock the socks off your waiter. Hola, ¿qué tal? I'm Dominique, and I've been learning Spanish as an adult for over 15 years. After growing up in California and living in places like Madrid, Barcelona, Mexico City, I've developed a really clear and rather unique understanding of the differences between Castilian Spanish, Latin American Spanish, and even the nuances of the Spanish spoken here in the US. So why is it so frustrating when waiters switch to English when you're trying to speak Spanish with them? Well, you've probably been learning Spanish for a while now. A restaurant seems like a place that you know the vocabulary, the conversation is pretty straightforward, you feel like you're in your element. But it's like waiters never even give you a chance. Even if you say something perfectly, they might still switch to English. And if you start speaking and make the slightest mistake or the slightest pronunciation error, they switch to English. Sometimes even bad English. Like you've been working so hard on your Spanish and your level is higher than their English level, and yet they're still speaking English to you. So why do waiters do this? If you're traveling to a more touristy area of Mexico, like Puerto Vallarta, Cancun, even neighborhoods in Mexico City, English might be the default in most restaurants. Waiters may have been trained to spot Americans, Canadians, native English speakers, and make them feel more comfortable in their establishments by speaking to them in English. They're often just trying to be more accommodating and more helpful to you, so for them it's just a habit and I wouldn't take it personally. Now, if this is happening to you in the US, it might be a little more nuanced as to why they're switching to English. Now, in my experience, when I'm ordering food at a restaurant here in the US and the person taking my order is of a younger generation, you know, like the 20-year-old son behind the counter, that person has most likely grown up in both languages, in English and Spanish. As adult language learners, we take a lot of time in choosing which language we're going to use. We're nervous about using Spanish, right? But a kid that's grown up in both languages doesn't think twice about it. It doesn't matter which language he or she is going to use with you. It's just about taking your order and making you feel comfortable and moving on to the next person that they have to take their order. The best thing you can do in these situations is if that person switches to English with you, automatically switch back to Spanish. Respond back in Spanish. Even if they're speaking to you in English, push back on the Spanish, respond in Spanish, give your order in Spanish. Even if you make mistakes, it'll show them that you are serious about speaking Spanish. They won't think twice about it. They'll just start speaking to you in the same language. But the good news is you can shift this dynamic immediately with how you start with ordering your food in Spanish. So let's start with expression number 1. I don't know why, but I found that when us non-native Spanish speakers start our orders with para mí el bistec, para mí los chilaquiles, para mí las enchiladas por favor, which isn't technically wrong, by the way. But somehow it just sounds awkward. My theory behind this is because the word para, as you can see as I pronounce it, para, is a difficult word for non-native Spanish speakers to say. The A-R-A sound is really tricky. So what happens is the first word you utter to a waiter happens to be a word that you will probably never have native-like pronunciation. So my advice is to order your food with a different phrase. And that phrase is, voy a querer. Voy a querer un pozole chico, por favor. Voy a querer un licuado de mamey, por favor. Voy a querer un café de olla, por favor. Just by starting your order with voy a querer instead of para mí, you're going to have a more native-like pronunciation. Waiters will see you as a confident Spanish speaker. Even if they can get the sense that you are not a native Spanish speaker, They feel confident to continue speaking in Spanish with you and not having any slip-ups in communication. Now on to expression number 2. Now, if you normally travel to Mexico and you want to take your ordering skills up a notch, you could also use the phrase le encargo. Le encargo 2 tacos con todo, por favor. Le encargo un cóctel de camarón. Le encargo una sopa de tortilla. It's like saying I put you in charge of this food order. I haven't traveled all over Latin America, so I'm going to assume that this is just a Mexico thing. But if Mexico is normally your choice of travel, it's a great expression to use across the country that will make you sound even more like a native speaker. So now you've ordered your food, but you're missing something or you need something from your waiter, so you flag him or her down. Now, level 1 Spanish, you might say something like, necesito un cuchillo. Now, don't get me wrong, that will definitely get you what you want. But if you are far beyond a level 1 Spanish, you should say this instead. Me podría traer. Me podría traer una servilleta, por favor? Me podría traer la cuenta, por favor? This simply means, could you bring me? And we're using podría in the usted form, third person usted form, to show politeness. It also makes you sound super advanced without having to use complicated language or structures. Hey, if you've been enjoying this real talk about learning Spanish as an adult, hit subscribe and help my small channel grow and reach the right people. Now let's move on to the bonus expression that I promised you that's gonna help you take things up a notch at the restaurant, especially if you're at that mid to intermediate Spanish level. If you pay attention, you'll notice that waiters, when they're dropping off food or they're checking in with you, they tend to ask you the same key phrase. Les hace falta algo. Les hace falta algo? Is anything missing? This is using the verb faltar in the gustar form to ask if you need anything. So if you think about that, if you're missing something or you need something, you can use the same form to ask for that thing. Now, I will say that this expression is used more in front of the whole group. So the waiter asks the question, les hace falta algo? And you would respond with, nos hace falta. I can just picture my husband and my mother-in-law at one of our favorite restaurants, Saks, in San Angel, Mexico City. And the waiter coming over and asking, les hace falta algo? And one of them responding with, si nos hace falta un plato de fruta para la nena. We're missing fruit for the little girl, my niece. You can even shorten this to just falta or faltan. Falta un cuchillo. Falta un tenedor. Falta otro café. All these forms of falta are used to talk about needing something. If I were to call a waiter over because I specifically need something and the entire group is eating, I'm simply going to use the expression that I taught you before. Me podría traer. Ay, disculpa. Me podría traer otro tenedor, por favor. Ay, muy amable. Muchas gracias. Something like that. I know that's pretty nuanced with using the verb faltar versus using me podría traer. But if you're at this intermediate level, I want to make sure that I explain those nuances to you. In English, we often make ourselves the center of attention when we use verbs, which is why we tend to want to use the verb necesitar. Yo necesito, necesitamos. In Spanish, it's super common to remove oneself from the conversation and speak in more general terms to show politeness. And there you have it. I can promise you that if you start using one or all of these phrases, take your pick, you're gonna start being more respected in Spanish-speaking restaurants. You'll notice that waiters will not only speak to you in Spanish from the beginning, but continue speaking Spanish with you throughout the meal, even if you make mistakes or your pronunciation is a little off. That's because you've set the tone of the level of Spanish that you have, and you've proven to that waiter that you know your stuff. It's like an instant signal that you're not just another tourist with a margarita and a Google Translate app. So I want to know, which phrase are you going to try the next time you are at a restaurant? Let me know in the comments.